When restrictions and limitations have taken hold, the freshness of innocence shakes us to our bones, like a flower growing through a crack in concrete, like a cannon bounded by a single white bow. Greetings, beloveds. This is Amy Caryn Johnson, the Earth Channel, here with you today with the 6th of an 8-part series on opening the gates of the Diamond Heart. Today's gate is 25. It is connected to the March Equinox. So if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, that's the spring equinox. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, that would be the autumn equinox. And the plant that I have chosen to represent this gate is the daisy. Perhaps one of the most well-known of the plants that I have chosen so far. I'm not going to get too deeply into why I chose it. I am just going to allow Gaia to speak to this. So I will now take a few deep breaths and close my eyes. I know that you can't see me in this one. I'm taking a break from being camera ready today, so feel free to go ahead and do that as well. Hello, this is Gaia. The energy of the 25th gate can be seen in the seasons in both hemispheres of this earth. At the equinox, and we would like to share with you the two different images of how this might happen to help you bridge the gap in case you're wondering. The image of the spring equinox comes most easily to Amy since she has always lived in the northern hemisphere. So we will begin with that one and begin to draw the connections to the autumn equinox after that. On the March equinox in the northern hemisphere, you can perhaps imagine a daisy blooming as one of the earlier blooms that begins to come out at that time. And the joy and surprise, even perhaps, delight might be even another good word to use, that can be associated with seeing those early blooming flowers. This is how the energy of the 25th gate can be seen in the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. But a similar type of energy can also be seen in the southern hemisphere at the fall equinox, the autumn equinox. There are some daisies, or at least daisies or flowers related to daisies in the daisy family that also bloom late in the season. And as leaves begin to turn into hues of russet, orange perhaps, so many of those warmer, earthier colors, to see a daisy, or you may even imagine a white mum perhaps, blooming in that late part of the season can be equally as delightful as seeing them when they bloom in the spring. So the energy here is one of surprise and delight and contrast. As Amy alluded to in the beginning of her poem, it is akin to what you all have a saying for that goes something like, from the mouths of babes. You have all likely seen and heard children who repeat things that they have heard, or even make observations just from what they are perceiving that would not normally be spoken of by adults, or at least not adults who have learned to stay quiet about certain things so as to not cause friction, so as to not bring up anything that might seem taboo. But children don't know these things yet. And so they speak them freely. Hopefully they are not too harshly reprimanded for doing so. Sometimes it can be quite hilarious. Hopefully it can just be enjoyed, appreciated for what it is. You can also, of course, explain to a child how it might be received in other audiences, perhaps, and why it might be received that way, so that they understand that there might be times and places where it is a very good thing to make such observations, speak them aloud, and other times when it might be good to just note it and keep it to oneself for that time. In truth, there is nothing wrong with speaking aloud observations as one sees them. And yet, we all came here to this earth in these bodies in order to bring certain messages and experiences into the world in ways that they have not been experienced or heard before. And sometimes there are times and places when those messages will not be received well. And so by explaining these things to a child, you are indeed helping them to understand how best to bring forward the magic of their true selves into the world with the most efficacy. Everything can be accepted. Not everything needs to be perpetuated. Not everything needs to be shouted at any moment. But there is no reason to try to shame any one truth or another, or any child speaking that truth, or what they perceive to be true. all perceptions can be accepted as well, however they might be perceived. When we play these games in these skin suits, we are all experimenting and learning more about duality, because in the end, it teaches us more about unity. It shows us the diversity of expressions that come from that place of oneness and become many. Some of them are painful, and yet even from pain, sometimes gifts can be received. And yet, we make things harder on ourselves when we perpetuate pain, shame, guilt, rather than accepting the particular truth that there is to be found within that experience. When we truly perceive the spark of source within each diverse experience, each diverse truth, and each diverse perception, we will find ourselves able to love no matter what. And in so doing, we will find ourselves as even more of an expression of Source. This game of contrast, this game of duality, is like a game of hide and seek. Just because we can't see the unity doesn't mean that it's not there. Pain and shame truly come from a place of wanting to be loved. And the truth has just become twisted so that a person temporarily believes that they must hide their light in order to be loved. In truth, the love within never went away. The love within the person experiencing that conditioning, as well as the person perpetuating it. And so that is the gift of the 25th gate, the daisy gate of the diamond heart. To startle you into seeing truths that you may have forgotten, and just check whether your heart is still open to accepting them, accepting the love that was there all along. Thank you so much for joining us, beloveds. Namaste. I hope that that was valuable to you. I did my best at finding the words to convey the concepts that Gaia was showing me and sending to me. Every now and then I struggle a little bit with those words. So I hope that I adequately conveyed that for you. And perhaps the second half of the poem will help even more so. But before I get to that, I hope that you all have seen the video about what's in store for 2022. I really enjoyed that message. As was said by Gaia in that message, we're not selling anything. We would love for everyone to connect more so with Mother Earth, no matter what, for free. She's always available. They are always available. And there are countless ways to do that. But if you do feel like you could use a little assistance, I do have channeled messages available on my website at amycarynjohnson.com. Caryn is spelled C-A-R-Y-N. The rest are as you would expect. So check those out. I also have astrological readings, and that includes both Vedic astrology as well as human design. Human design is where I am coming up with these 8 gates of the diamond heart, which human design actually does call the G center. But I can happily tell you more about that in a reading if you would like. There are some very reasonably priced options for you there. Also, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the bell button to be notified when new messages come out. All right, here is the second half of the poem. Like thunder rumbling through a clear sky, as in a quiet room a whisper screams so loud, as a ray of sun gleaming on a white gull's wings, as it flies under a dark and heavy storm cloud.